Hi, this is Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. Tonight would have been a great night for an American League Championship Series game at Progressive, or a World Series game for that matter. There are a couple of things that we as Indians fans can still do. A must-do is to become a Tampa Bay Ray fan, as they now have 2 chances to knock the New York Yankees out of the postseason. The second thing, never mind. There is no second thing, at least until the Houston Astros advance, and then you'll hopefully get to root for the Rays to beat them also. As Cleveland fans, we don't ask for much, do we? We've got Terry Pluto here. More sports, and Les Levine is on the air. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine on a Thursday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again. More Sports and Les Levine, of course, is brought to you in part by cleveland.com and empowered by cleveland.com. Terry Pluto, who's empowered by anybody who votes for the Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Ohio. They empower him. How many? I haven't seen in a couple weeks. Did you add a couple more?
No, Les. I think they took 3 away.
Because you were
based on my emails of late. So
you weren't prolific. What are people upset about? I think it's because the Browns are doing well and people don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, I just think it's frankly, it's the whole environment of what we're living in right now. The politics and the virus, and the Indians don't have money. All that stuff. So I think that's a lot of what's going on.
So we'd be a lot happier with losing teams, or at least more
sometimes.
Used to it. At least more
used
to it.
It's really strange because I have sent these people that the Dolans are the worst owners and that if it was the Browns, you'd have 8 consecutive winning seasons, 5 playoffs, 1 trip to the Super Bowl. How bad
do you
can
think,
that be?
I remember when the Indians played against the Cubs in the 16 World Series and in World Series before with the Hargrove teams, the consensus used to be if they could just win one of them, they kind of buy themselves several years of time to have people let up on them. You still, looking back on that, you still think that's correct?
Yeah, I think it would have helped a lot. And also it helps economically when you win one, but it would have, because now I'm getting strange things of all they want to do is contend. They really don't want to win a title.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
It's sort of, it's one thing if you're setting out, like the Pirates right now want to lose all these games, and so many other teams do. But, if you look at what's happening, by the way, the Yankees haven't been in the World Series since 2010.
It's hard to believe. Haven't won since 01 or I think.
Right. And when did the Dodgers last win? Wasn't it like 20 years for them?
85. The Kirk Gibson home run was the last World Championship.
Is that their last? All right, so there's your 2 largest markets, the biggest spending teams. They consistently, you could say, buy their way into contention. But when you talk about winning a World Series, it's just hard. Who would have thought that the Kansas City Royals would have been in the World Series before the Yankees?
No, that's true. You look at the Yankees.
Or the Indians would have been, or the Tigers.
You look at the Yankees and you see their lineup before they get to the plate. It's almost like the Yankees are dealing with a different human species than the rest of us. These guys are monsters.
They're physically bigger. You're right, Les.
Yeah.
These are big people. Fortunately for the rest of baseball, a lot of them can't stay healthy, or it would be
right.
It would be really over quickly.
Help me out on this, because I know you talked to Chernikoff and Antonetti and everybody on the inside. Somebody told me that one of the strengths and weaknesses in finding players and drafting them or signing them, pitchers, they don't want a pitcher over 6'3". They want them from 6'1" to 6'3". Is there anything to that?
No, they'll take a taller one. They don't like a right-hander under 6 foot. But no, they'll.
Well, nobody in baseball
they don't want somebody who's 6'8", but they do make exceptions to all of that. And then when you look at some of the I think Josh Tomlin was 5'11". There were guys like that, but it's kind of like they say the same thing. They want offensive linemen at this size, but I've never heard that like 6'3". No, because you see some of these guys 6'4", 6'5". They like the leverage.
Yeah,
I mean Tristan McKenzie, they drafted him high. He weighs 12 pounds, but he's like 6'6".
All right, let's get to what's going on right now. Yesterday, Terry Francona talked to the media. Before that, getting into last night's show, excuse me, I was concerned about him. It's such a long season.
Yes.
It's such a different lifestyle. It's such a pressure-packed thing, although Cleveland isn't pressure like Boston was. What do you think of this? Is he going to need extra help going around, or what do you think?
I don't know. When he said he spent four days in ICU, he had I lost track of the surgeries and the blood clots. Like you said, he needs to get a lot stronger. I think the Indians' feeling is this: would you rather have Terry Francona or not? Of course you would. So therefore, you're willing to wait for him. And also, you do have Sandy Alomar sitting there. The only thing would be if Sandy gets a chance to interview and manage somewhere else.
But for
whatever reason, that hasn't happened.
Why am I thinking that the Indians and Major League Baseball doesn't feel the same way about Sandy Alomar that we do?
The Indians really like him. They really do.
They still do.
Yes. Oh, sure.
Okay.
If not, they could have. They could put Mike Sarbaugh in charge of the team. Sarbaugh's managing the minor leagues a ton of games.
Right.
So if you really wanted to do that, or if you quote didn't care about winning unquote, you could have done that. But it seems like the other teams aren't taken with them. It's hard to know why certain guys get to be managers and some don't.
Yeah.
It's just. I remember when Tampa Bay hired Kevin Cash. I thought, why didn't they hire Sandy Alomar?
Yeah, Cash is just a bullpen coach here, right?
Yes, he was. He was only a couple of years away from playing, and he turns around. He's terrific. Aaron Boone goes straight from the TV booth to the Yankee dugout.
Tell me how much you think let's assume for the moment that Francona is one of the top 2 or 3 managers in baseball. How many, given the same team to the top 10 managers in baseball, how many wins? What's the difference in the amount of wins by having a Tito Francona and not?
Well, I think one of them has to do with how the manager copes with the style of the front office that you have. If you like Joe Torre was always really good with New York, big spending, big pressure. He could handle all that. When he was managing as a younger guy in Atlanta, the talent wasn't as good, and frankly, he struggled. That's part of it. But I think a lot of guys could not have handled New York and that whole situation as well as Torre did. He was like made for that. I always thought he was like a big market manager. Francona's done both, but I think what really makes Francona special here is, he often says, I know what I signed up for. He knows it's a smaller market, and he knows the payroll's not going to be that big. I asked him straight out, I said, after your health problems, I can't imagine anybody would say this is a really good idea for the rebuild that it's facing and the added stress. And he said, as long as he's physically fine, he said, I'm at the point in my life where in baseball, it's like, who do I want to go through it with? In other words, the people. And he feels very comfortable with Chernoff and Antonetti. They are with him. But I don't think we're going to know for a few months or whatever whether this guy's actually going to manage or not. Right,
till they start getting into spring training and pitchers and catchers report and all that stuff. It's just a long day.
Did you hear where he said also, Leslie said something about, well, I still got to get my hip work done, which sounded like a hip replacement.
Yeah.
But he didn't know if he'd have that or not. He said, well, I could always limp. It was a press conference that, you almost needed a medical degree to kind of read through the lines and figure out all what was wrong with him.
We all love baseball guys. He's a traditional old baseball guy.
Yeah.
Yet you don't want to see him do something stupid here. No,
you don't. And that's the thing. He's battled a lot of health. Well, he said, I forgot, 15 years ago or something, he spent 7 months or 7 weeks in the hospital for something or other.
Somebody said today that, he's just an old baseball guy. and comes from old school because his dad was that way. His dad wasn't that way. His dad was a hardworking. He was a small guy. He didn't have much strength. I played golf. I had the opportunity to play golf with the one I called Tito, the older one, and I remember his swing as a baseball player. He had the exact same swing. He couldn't hit the ball very far anymore, but the mechanics were perfect. So I'm not sure that Tito Francona was a guy that was up to a whole bunch of hijinks where Terry might have been leading the band.
Yeah, I mean Terry always had kind of the little bit of a rebel. And it's hard to imagine now, but when he was in like in high school and I think in college, apparently he had really long hair. He would have really looked like that time. And but more importantly, I think while Francona's old school in some regard, he does look at a lot of the analytics and all those kind of things. But the nice thing is, he has the credibility and clout. Like if he doesn't like some of the stats or where it's going, he could really, put his will and stamp on how he wants to do it. But he is open to a lot of that stuff. Whereas I'll tell you, a lot of these teams now, and I think, for example, if Sandy were to take over, the A's are run that way. Tampa Bay, these teams are run really by a lot of the numbers guys in the front office.
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost making out the lineup and everything.
I wonder if they are. I wonder if they have a chart set up what to do with pinch hitting situations if push comes to shove.
Oakland does.
They do.
Oakland does.
It's already mapped out.
And it's like it's kind of like everybody's on this assembly line. And when you look at Oakland, I mean, they're kind of like the Indians. They get it. They win more than they should. They don't spend a lot of money, but they can't get to the World Series.
And they're in a division where they should have trouble with California and or the Angels.
Yeah.
And
I mean, who's right? The Angels. The Angels spend all this money, and Oakland's better.
Yeah. And they have the best player in baseball, in Mike Trout.
Exactly. I can't even name the starting lineup for Oakland. I don't know most of those guys.
I have trouble doing it for Cleveland.
The Indians are going to have to do it because they were a little cut above Oakland and Tampa Bay.
Well, because of the
that's
pitching.
where they're going to have to be down. They're going to be down there now.
Yeah, but that's because of the pitching. Hey, Terry, when we get back, I want to take a look at what the Indians had at the end of the year, what we can look forward to them, what they have to fill. We'll do that when we get back. Terry Pluto with us. He is, how many times Sports Writer of the Year? About 11 or 13?
I think it was 10.
10. That rounds it off. 10 times Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Ohio. Back in a moment. We, of course, are powered by cleveland.com.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Yeah, Terry Pluto with us here on a Thursday night. Hey, Terry, we were talking about Francona a moment ago. None of us really claim to know him, but what we think the image is, do you have any idea if he knows how much he's making?
Yes, he does.
He does, so that's a put on.
People know what they're making. You talk to somebody at McDonald's, they'll tell you it's $10.42 an hour. They know. You
mean you don't think he looks at his first check he gets on the year and say, "That's it? That's all I get"?
No.
Okay, I don't either. All right, here's how
he negotiates the parameters of the contract with the team. He has a friend who's a lawyer that makes sure it's all, done in proper legalese. But I mean, he knows whether it's 2.6 million or 3.2 million. I'm just throwing it out. I'm guessing that's probably the range.
Yeah.
4 million. I don't know. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Let's take a look at how the Indians ended up last year. Look at this. This is their lineup at the end of last season. That's in the playoffs, I might add. All right, so you had Francisco, and how much they make will be on the right, or how much they would make if they are here this coming year. Hernandez, second baseman. Jose Ramirez is the third baseman. Carlos Santana.
The thing that's misleading there, Les, is Santana was really $14 million. The other 6 was paid by, I think it's Tampa Bay or Seattle. I forgot which.
Okay.
Remember, he bounced from a couple of teams.
Right.
But the Indians' cut of that was 14.
All right. So there's Franmil Reyes. I thought he was making about. Is that the right number?
Yeah, all those guys. That's kind of what they make in their second year.
Josh Naylor, Roberto Perez. Would you go after him as a potential free agent somewhere else?
Who's that, Roberto?
Yeah.
Well, they have an option for him for $5 million extra. They'll pick that up.
And what about these guys, Tyler Naquin and Delino DeShields? DeShields might have been the worst defensive center fielder I've ever seen.
You got to kind of go back to looking at whatever happened in Mercado, because he showed a lot of potential the year before. He was a highly regarded prospect, then kind of leveled off in that. He was pretty good in the outfield. I think that's there. They've got to find some young outfitters. It's really strange in how they're able to develop pitching, which is the hardest, especially starting.
And
pitching.
Can't find position players.
It feels like it's 20 years since you've had any sort of outfielders come up.
Who would you say? Manny Ramirez, maybe?
Yeah, but see, that's all the 80s and 90s there.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have enough stars.
For a while, they had Manny Ramirez. They had Brian Giles. They had so many outfitters to get rid of him. Kenny Lofton, they traded for him as a minor leaguer. Those guys, Albert came through the farm system, Richie Sexton. But then when you start going after that, it seems like they were always kind of just grabbing guys or.
Yeah, plus they were put on teams that were so good, their accomplishments didn't seem to matter as much.
But what I meant is, Les, they found a way to they could draft bats back then, but they had trouble getting pitching. These guys developed pitchers like crazy. In fact, Francona said, we were in the thing that he had with us, that part of the reason he'd be willing to go through the rebuild, says when you start talking to 5 or 6 starters, he goes, you still have a chance. He said he was talking to somebody else from another team. You don't want to name it. And, they have been bad for a while, but they think suddenly they're ready to make a breakthrough. And he goes, I look at their roster, and they got 2 guys. He goes, 2 starters. That's it. He goes, after that, Phil, and he goes, I wouldn't want to go out there only 2 starters.
Yeah, in fact, he's at the point where he's been able to give up. He's been able to give up a whole bunch of guys. It's obvious that, I don't know, some of these players should have been traded, but you didn't know it at the time. Kluber is a guy everybody was upset.
Track record, for the most part, Les. Now, Bauer's going to win the Cy Young probably, or at least quit in the NL. But he was working his way out of here. But in terms, most of the guys they gave up, Paul Hoynes had a long list of all these players that they let walk since the end of 16. And I'm looking at that going, yeah, and how many would you want back?
Yeah.
Not a lot. I mean, Michael Brantley, that's the biggest thing that they, the do-over, where they should have spent the money would have been to keep Michael.
Yeah.
Because you finally had an outfielder. Granted, they traded for him, but basically they developed him in the farm system. And he went through the injury things. You got him healthy, and then he came back as an all-star, and then they didn't pay him.
All right, what do you do? Obviously, the big chip out there is Francisco Lindor. You have him for another year if you want him. You can trade him.
No, they won't.
I know they won't.
They'll trade him.
But at what point?
I think before this, I don't think they want to pay him. I mean, when you listen to that thing that Antonetti said, that was a pretty bleak financial discussion.
Yeah.
And, Antonetti's not one to go to extreme on anything. So, frankly, listening to that, I kept thinking it might even be worse. I mean, it's not like where they're going to can't make payroll or something, but what's coming, I mean, you're going to probably, not just Frankie, you'll trade him. You're not going to, although here's an interesting thing, Les. I was looking like last year, this was before the pandemic, Jason Kipnis hit about 245 with 17 homers for the Indians. He ended up going to the Cubs on a minor league contract last spring. And I wonder especially when you look at Santana, maybe even Hernandez, who had a good year, but a lot of already even before the pandemic hit and the budget cuts of some teams, those type of players tended not to get a whole lot of money. And I wonder if the Indians could luck into,
maybe
a couple of guys like
maybe.
that.
I know you've been saying it for a long time, and I have too, that people not happy with the Dolan family and Paul Dolan especially. Yet I've always said just be careful what you wish for, because you might not like what you're going to get.
Well, the guy that owns the Angels spends money all the time. They can't seem to get much right there. And you just go through a lot of here. I know one of the concerns the Indians have, and Francona said it too, is that if you go and you end up being really bad, you could be bad for a long time in baseball. Like what the Tigers are going through now, that could last for quite a while.
I was watching him last year at the end of the season, and Miguel Cabrera came up. And number one, I had to do a double take to say he's still playing and he's still got significant years left. Guy can't play anymore.
Yeah, 3 more.
He can't play, and they're stuck with it. Although I know their fans would have been upset if they didn't sign him 4 or 5 years ago when they did. But boy, you look at him; he just there is no room for the ability to add anybody.
No, well, and also that was when Mike Ilitch was coming for the last few years of his life. They were trying to win a World Series. Ilitch has a lot of money. He and Dan Gilbert kind of compete for who's the richest guy in Detroit.
Well, they were always talking about Ilitch just giving it up. This would be his last year; he wouldn't be around. So they stuck his son with the Bills, and the son says, "Wait a minute, we got to do something about this." Yeah,
their payroll's lower than the Indians this year. I had it in the paper the other day. There were 8. This is based on 162 games. Baseball Prospectus, that's where I like to go to get contract info. There were 8 teams that had payrolls under 100 million. And I think the Indians were like 6 from the bottom. But of those 8 teams, Les, how many do you think made the playoffs? Now, granted, it's 16 field, but how many
out of 16?
Out of the last 8 teams in payroll.
Oh,
how many of those 8 made the playoffs? The Indians obviously are 1. Who else?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay's 2. Oakland's 3. Miami is 4. And Milwaukee is 5.
Wow.
And then you look at it in the second
round.
Need
to know.
Second round, you still have Tampa Bay. And who else is
Oakland's still there. Yeah.
So
maybe not after
it's
tonight.
a little different year, but still, it just kind of shows.
Yeah, it's tough. I remember when Al Lerner bought the Browns, and I had him on my show, and he said football. There was some complaint about the football owners and what they're paying, what they're not paying, and Al just said those guys are lucky. The baseball guys are just lucky. I didn't like baseball growing up, because if he did, the price of poker would have gone way up if that had happened. Yeah,
maybe, but I'll tell you, a lot of these people. Like, for example, many years ago, Dan Gilbert bid on the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yes, he did.
This is I think, before he bought the
Cavs. Before he got him, yeah.
And he dropped out because he had a price that he felt he needed to get in a league without a salary cap. A lot of these guys that would normally bet on, like Ballmer, who bought the Clippers or that, they're not anxious to jump into baseball. They want football or basketball or hockey where there's salary caps.
Sure. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Terry Pluto is here from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Northeast Factory Direct, they've got the 3 locations, but you got to check out the website, northeastfactorydirect.com, for more information. We'll come back in a moment. We'll turn our attention to Jarvis Landry. Terry, he said something today that I thought was tremendous if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. I don't know if you caught what he said. We'll do that and more when we get back. More sports and less Levine. It continues, powered by cleveland.com.
Transform your home for the holidays with an authentic Nature Stone garage floor. No more tripping on cracked, uneven concrete. Stop slipping on puddles and standing water. It's the safer, more beautiful garage floor that's easy to clean and never needs replaced. That's why it's backed by Russell's Promise. For a limited time, get more Nature Stone than ever before with up to half your garage floor free. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com to qualify for your free flooring. It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was about maybe the drive right before halftime. I remember, Austin Hooper catching a pass. I caught a pass on third down right before we clocked it. And just the operation, how that whole sequence happened. And then Cody Parkey comes on and makes the field goal. And I'm on the sideline and I immediately look, to Coach O'Shea and to Baker, and I said, we just took a step in the right direction, because I can remember being here, for the last 2 years, and we'll do all of these things, and then we'll miss the kick, or, something will happen right before we get into field goal range, or a penalty will happen, or something will happen that kind of like stops us. And we had that sequence of plays, and then we kicked the field goal, and I felt the step being taken as a football team. I'm getting chills right now. As a football team, to be able to be where we want to be, because that's what we have to do. We have to be able to score those points right before half, and then come out in half and then score. That's a 10-point swing right there, and that's a beautiful thing in this game.
Thank you.
Terry, I think that's brilliant what he said. Normally, if the Cleveland Browns would watch a game like that, it would be the other way around. The Browns would come down, look for a field goal, and miss it. And then the other team either just stops the momentum or they come back and score either at the end of the half or the beginning of the second half. The Browns, that, as Landry said, that's a 10-point swing, which is almost overcomable in the NFL.
Well, just because, remember, you always were Mr. Time Clock Management. That was the job you always wanted.
And well-deserved, by the way.
I'm saying, and for good reason. you watch some of the Browns thing, give me a whack at that.
No, but think about it. The Browns are coming down the field, and they wind up, between the end of the first half and the beginning of the second, they wind up with 10 points, as opposed to missing a field goal and the other team getting their 10 points. It's a 7 points. It's a swing the other way.
And there's something very deflating going to the locker room where you had a chance to go down and at least get a field goal. But, it wasn't just the missed kicks. That happens too. But suddenly, it's 3rd and 5 and somebody jumps off sides. Now it's 3rd and 10, and you end up not being in position. You end up having to punt, or, you can't run the plays that need to be run to make those things, in fact, Stefanski said that was really their first 2-minute drive of the year.
Right.
Where they got the ball there, and so he was very excited how it looked.
Well, I think that's a recognizable thing that he says that's one of the things the Browns as a team. He's in his 3rd year now, and he just hasn't seen it. All right, so now let me come on Odell Beckham's side for a minute, because he doesn't get, well, after the other game, the game against Dallas, he got a lot of love, but he's never said anything publicly other than I want to win football games, and he's still, there's something about him that people want to get on, and yet until he produces as he did last Sunday, that's not going to happen. But the only wrong, he hasn't said it wrong. The only thing he's really said that stands out is I want to win football games, and he's not lying about that.
Right, but he would do all this stuff. Remember, running the watch and warm ups in the game, and just these weird things last year to put attention on yourself. He was the kind of guy that would do things to attract attention to himself, and then say, "I don't want to know why people are paying attention to me." Whereas this year, you talk about a drama-free year. That was one of the goals for Andrew Berry and Stefanski when they took over. Was remember that we kind of got tired of hearing in the beginning. They kept saying, tough, smart, accountable players. That's another way of saying drama-free players. Well, granted, they've been winning, that helps, but they've been drama-free.
Isn't that interesting that you've got between Landry and Beckham, you got two supposedly best friends, went to school together and all that, and yet they look at the game a little bit differently. And as outlandish as OBJ may be, Landry is not.
No, Landry, right. I think they are two different people. Landry never wanted this huge persona. I mean, OBJ, he goes to Paris for fashion shows and all that stuff back when you could do those things. He was in New York. He liked being a celebrity. He liked being on the fashion pages and all that. Jarvis is more of he started as a possession receiver. He's grown into a little more of that. But you will put him in a slot. You put him out. You spread him out as a wide receiver. You turn around. He's played 100 consecutive games. That is hard to do in the NFL. 100 consecutive games. Never missed a game. So when you look at that, and also to me here we see it didn't matter what quarterback was playing. Jarvis caught passes.
He did, and he continues to do it, and he does it in an unflashing way. And actually, that's the kind of guy that, when I grew up, that I would like to watch play and try to emulate.
I still say he's the best receiver on the team. Now, Odell is the most talented, but the best. If I had to pick one to play a game, I'm picking Jarvis over Odell because I know what I'm going to get from Jarvis.
All right, what do these guys do to the running game? Do they change now? I mean, obviously, you need to get everybody who's injured, bring them back. But what does that passing game do to the running game?
Well, in the old days, back when you and I were younger, it used to be you ran first to kind of establish the pass.
Establish the pass, yeah.
Establish the run first, and then I don't know, 15 years ago or so, that was like you just kind of throw the ball and the running game's an afterthought. But it's not just here. I think. The Shanahan family did it in Denver, and then Kyle, turned around and did it the 1 year he called plays here, and then he did it in Atlanta, even though Matt Ryan was good. I mean, everywhere Kyle Shanahan went, that zone blocking scheme that we see.
Yeah, but it's fading.
Running the ball
it's fading
is
a little bit.
a big deal.
Isn't it fading a little bit because they're just not looking as good as they did, and they're just not winning games?
Right, they've had a bunch of injuries, but Like did they go to the Super Bowl last year? I'm trying to remember. I believe they did.
Yeah, they did.
So you have Shanahan also called the plays when Atlanta went to the Super Bowl. So it's kind of like the Indians. Okay, they didn't win it.
Yeah. No, but he did have a nice 21-point PowerPoint presentation to why he had to leave here.
Yeah, they did. I mean, and Kyle was looking to try and position himself to be a head coach and knew that would never happen when he had Johnny Manziel shoved down his throat. I mean, really, that was, you want to get down the bottom of it? That was it. And so he forced his way out. Then he went over to Atlanta and did very well. And then he got the San Francisco job. And, Jimmy Garoppolo, I see a lot of similarities between Garoppolo and Mayfield. These are guys that, they're pretty good, and you surround them in the right system, and they're really good. We don't, this fantasy mentality that if the quarterback isn't thrown for 350 yards, well, he's not that good. Well, who cares? I believe, didn't Shanahan win a playoff game last year? He only threw 8 passes.
Yeah, so?
And he won.
The Browns, on the other hand, when they win, for example, Baker had, I think, 2 games in a row in the 150 area, and you didn't notice that as being not a lot because the running game you were moving up and down the field, and normally you assume that means you're passing, but you can move up and down the field running the ball too.
Yeah, and also the fact is, like, after 4 games, he's got 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I have not seen the Browns' stats of late in the red zone, but I know they're very high. And oftentimes in the red zone now, what we've seen is where people are assuming they're going to run, and then they do some sort of play action thing. He throws a 2-yard pass to, Austin Hooper. He's throwing one to Harrison Bryant. He basically that down there sometimes is where they are passing when you'd expect them to run, but the running game is so good that a play action pass, play action pass is a really good weapon. So that's why, here's the deal. They have an offense that they know what it is, how they want to run it, the kind of players they want to get. And Andrew Berry went out there and got a whole bunch of the kind of linemen that fit that zone blocking scheme. Bill Callahan was on the market about 5 minutes before the Browns called him, and I heard they paid him a ton of money to come in here as an offensive line coach, which if I'm Callahan, you better give me a ton of money too. It's the Browns. Right. But nonetheless, they're able to convince him to come. And, you can see the difference he's made on the line. I mean, Jedrick Wills, he's had, he had the one game and a couple false starts. And I think he's given up a sack, but there's nothing like the disaster I expected at left tackle.
Yeah. Bud Shaw was here the other night, and I brought up something he told me when he first came here in 1991. He was told, wait till you see what this place is like downtown on a football Sunday. And what he was talking about was all the Bernie signs and songs and all that stuff. Do you think we're too jaded to do that now, or do you think there's a whole bunch of people out there ready to do that stuff again, those hijinks?
Yeah, I think once we get past the virus too, Les, because that's just, people aren't even. I've gotten emails from fans out of state, older fans that said, I used to go to the sports bar or that to watch the Browns, so now I'm doing it on DirecTV or whatever. But the point being, where people communally got together, I think until we get past that, you won't have that mania like you would in a normal year. But in terms of, say, if this were a normal year and this team gets hot, wins 10 games, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun anyway, but you have a ton of stuff.
Yeah, but you're gonna do it with 12,000 people at a home game or 10,000 or whatever. So
right, and that assumes that holds up, and everything is so weird now, Wes. It really is. By the way, isn't it interesting? I believe the Indians had the highest TV ratings in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Nothing surprises me about the Indians' attendance and all that stuff.
I'm saying their TV ratings were so high.
Yeah, always.
So fans are watching.
They pay their money for them.
Yeah, but they can't. Also, but they can't go out and right now, if like we talked about how downtown will be electric, they can't.
Yeah, that's for sure. No question about that. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Terry Pluto is with us, claim dealer on cleveland.com. We'll take a break and come on back in a moment. More Sports and Les Levine is powered by cleveland.com.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Brown's Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
I think it's just been since day one, coming in and even over virtual off season, whatever it was, developing that relationship. Speaking last week, speaking each and every day or every other day or whenever we have those conversations, just to be able to understand with what someone else wants alongside with me and what he wants for players or what he wants as a head coach, just being able to understand the people that you're here giving your day to, it goes a long way. So there's a great line of communication there. I feel like it's always an open door. It's we could say things and there's never any hard feelings because we know where each other's hearts at, and we want to work and want to be great. So I definitely say that's a great relationship, and just look forward to keeping that going.
So why the big hubbub about Odell Beckham? All of that sounded legitimate. I don't think he faked it, and I think he believes it.
Well, I also think he's gotten older, and he's figuring out that at this stage of his career, I believe he's only had one winning season less and one trip to the playoffs. And if he were going to be the type of respected player he wants, if this system is working for winning, he's for it. Now, if they lose 2 or 3 in a row, Wes, I'm not all that, that Odell's going to be fine with only 7 targets a game or something.
Yeah, get the ball to me.
Not.
I'm out here.
Yeah, because and part of it is the ego that drove these guys to be really successful isn't just that selfish. It's like, I remember Michael Jordan would say, well, I'm the best guy to take the shot in the situation.
Sure.
Even if there's 2 guys on me. And that's how they think. Odell, even if there's 2 guys on me, I'm the best guy. Throw it up there. I'll go get it. I mean, that's part of the persona, even though that may not always be correct.
All right, I'm working on a How Come Quickie. You can have all properties involved if you want it, okay? You ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
How come Modell took the Browns away, but Odell brought them back?
How come?
Yeah, not a great one.
I'm not good at these lists.
It's upper level. It's B plus, B minus, maybe. We'll work on it.
It's fine.
There's something there.
I'm a really bad one on quickies. I'm just not good at. I'm not good at quickies. I don't care about golf. It's kind of the same thing to me.
You're the 13th sports writer
of
the year.
Together.
You're the 13th sports writer of the year in the state of Ohio. What else do you need to know?
I know less every day. I'll tell you that. What I do know is that, and I think that, I mentioned before all the stuff that was going on in the world right now and going on here. The Browns having a season where they win 9-10 games and they keep scoring all these points. I mean, what wonderful relief that is. And it makes everybody who's a sports fan here, I mean, Sunday becomes a big day. And I want to see them play. I mean, I'm real anxious to see what they do against the Colts defense. I really am. Plus, they've averaged 39 points over the last 3 games. 39.
Yeah. I was thinking about this.
I don't care if he throws the ball 5 times. They've scored 39 points a game.
Not too long ago, Bob Costas, who is above everything else, is a good fan of the games. And he said when baseball was going to come back and you didn't know how it was going to be, you didn't know the full details of the playoffs and the breakdowns and all that stuff. And he said, I'm a baseball historian and a fan. This is not the year I want the Cleveland Indians to win the World Series. He wanted it to be a legitimate, regular baseball season. And you understand that, don't you?
I do, because I think it is going to be weird whoever wins it. Now, you'd rather win it than not. The other thing which would have helped had the Indians even gone to the World Series and losing is it's going to be so hard to sell tickets next year. This would at least would have created a stir of, well, look how good they were. So anytime you have success matters a lot. But I mentioned before, like you talked about Bud in 1991, what he was told. You just wouldn't have the buzz in the streets. Somebody said this to me too, that, with a lot of people working remotely instead of at the office, how people at the office would be talking about the Browns or whatever. They're not at the office.
No, they're not gathering around the water cooler anymore.
No, I mean, the Zoom stuff is better than nothing, and that's what it is. It's better than nothing. But it's not the same as, 3 people at the lunch table or 4. And I mean, a friend of mine, her job thing is she's a huge Browns fan, Mary Kelly. And so, she had to write poems on the Browns every Monday, whether they won or lost. That was a thing they would do, and they would make fun of the poem. And, people would laugh about it. And that's what they did on the lunch break at the plant she worked at.
I have a friend who has a grandson who at the time was probably 9 or 10 and wasn't a Browns fan, wasn't a football fan at all. And when you think about it, go back in history and you'll see they were never any good for all those so many years. So there was no excitement built up for him. So I asked him the other day after the Dallas game, I said, is your grandson starting to enjoy this? He says, no, he needs more because he doesn't have the reference to the whole thing. And
sure.
he needs to see more. And I totally get that.
And also, too, they need the players to be around here for a while so you begin to really identify with them. Not just Baker. I mean, I was really bummed out on Chubb's thing with his knee.
Sure, he was about to become a really popular guy.
I mean, you're in my age range. How good do you think he is?
Well, he's not Jim Brown, but then again, nobody else was. But I think I think he's
of all the other Cleveland runners. Is he closer to Brown than anybody else you've seen?
Actually, Greg, maybe Pruitt. Maybe.
Yeah. See, Leroy was very good right after him. Leroy Kelly. He gets lost because he came in right after Jim Brown. But in terms of power and speed, in my mind, he is the closest thing. I don't know, he's not Jim Brown, but the closest combination, size, power, and speed that I've seen. Brown, I think, is like the most amazing athlete ever played in the NFL.
Right.
So it's not fair. But when you start down and go, all right, who's number two? I remember Kelly being really good. Kelly gets lost because he came after Jim Brown.
Well,
But
Kelly,
after that,
Kelly, of course, was Ray Boom Boom Jackson from the Fortune Cookie movie.
there you go.
So he's got that going for him. Do you remember when they made that movie?
Just barely.
Walter Matthau in it and Jack Lemmon, and
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
they had them playing they had the Browns playing the Minnesota Vikings on a Sunday. So what they did is they got the Browns. This is unbelievable. I don't know who would be around to verify that. Maybe Kevin Byrne. Maybe they actually got the Browns to receive a punt and run it down the sideline by their bench so they could get the camera shot of it. And then the next day they came in and filled in the rest of the scene. Could you imagine somebody going up to Vince Lombardi and say, "Hey, we're filming this movie here. Would you mind faking a handoff?"
Yeah, I can see Modell though. Yeah, there
probably was there might have been some money involved, so I can understand that.
I'm sure. And Art was always looking for a way to raise revenue, as they say now.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're coming back. Show's going fast. That means good things happening. More sports and less Levine is powered by cleveland.com.
Transform your home for the holidays with an authentic Nature Stone basement floor. Add more livable space, inhibit the growth of mold and mildew, and improve air quality for your family. It's the healthier, more beautiful basement floor that's easy to clean and never needs replaced. That's why it's backed by Russell's Promise. For a limited time, get more Nature Stone than ever before with up to half your basement floor free. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com to qualify for your free flooring. It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Right now, Smiley One is making it very easy for you to invest in a new heating or cooling comfort system without breaking your budget. For a limited time, take advantage of the special financing, 36 months on select Bryant high-efficiency equipment. They make it easy for your family and you to stay comfortable all year long. Call Smiley One for further details. Terry Pluto is with us. Brown's getting ready to take on the Indianapolis Colts. This day in sports history, 1957. Brooklyn Dodgers announced that they're moving to Los Angeles, and they hadn't renamed the stadium Chavez Levine yet, but they were about to. Terry, how many people do you think were at the last game at Ebbets Field in '57?
I have no clue.
15,000. 6,000.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't much.
What a fun team that would have been to cover or watch.
Yeah, I read not Roger Kahn's book, not Boys of Summer, but he called something like Summer Memories or whatever, where he talked about kind of his writing career. But as he mentioned early on, what really helped him when he was covering the Brooklyn Dodgers back then, Les, is the Giants were still, the early 50s Giants were still in New York and the Yankees were.
Right.
And so he kind of had the Dodgers to himself because the other two teams are like where a lot of the media went. And it set up and he said guys like Red Smith and that from the New York Times or New York they didn't feel like going to Brooklyn.
Could you imagine that broadcast booth with Vince Scully and Ernie Harwell.
Right?
Yeah, Russ Hodges. Yeah, unbelievable. In fact,
and then at that time too, of course, they were at the forefront of not just Jackie Robinson, but Roy Campanella, Newcomb, and a couple other of
the Giants followed right up. Monty Irvin came along, Willie Mays, of course.
Willie Mays,
Juan Marichal, and so on.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting times if you were a baseball fan, no question.
And then they both moved out. That's the remarkable thing was they didn't lose just one team. They lost two back to back.
Do you remember? I mentioned Bob Costas earlier. Do you remember when the Browns were moving and the halftime speech that he gave about Art Modell? If you don't remember it, look it up, Google it or something. I think Bob Costas showed the feelings, expressed the feelings of every Browns fan, and he compared it to Art Modell, who was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and compared it to how bad Art was hurt at the time. You have any change in thought about Art Modell in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Me neither.
No. Not just that. How good of an owner was he really? I guess that would be my argument.
Well, it depends on what your criteria, what you're measuring. If it's championships.
Because when he went to Baltimore.
Yeah, he wins two.
Given a rent-free stadium and everything else less, and he still ended up having to first sell half of the team and then the rest of it. How the heck did that happen?
I don't know how it happened. I don't know how you can lose money in the NFL, but actually lose it twice.
Yes, that's my point.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Part of that, and then the blessing for him was he had Ozzie sitting there, and he was so busy back then fighting off lawsuits and everything else. He just let Ozzie run the team,
right? And
it turned out, he had a Hall of Fame tight end who was a better general manager than being a Hall of Fame tight end.
Right, no question about that. You wonder though, one bad criticism he gets, and I'm not sticking up for him in any way, shape, or form, is that when Paul Brown got fired in '63, and then Blanton Collier stayed on and took over the team and they won. People say, well, that was Paul Brown's team. No, I guess after a year and a half, it becomes the owner's team, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, when I did my book, Things I Learned from Watching the Browns, I said, you know what that is? That is actually a really strong case for putting Blanton Collier in the Hall of Fame. Because he ran the football operation. He really did.
Right.
All the way down. Unfortunately, remember the hearing issues for him got so bad, he had to prematurely retire from coaching.
Right. Supposedly, he was fantastic at every position.
Yes, and when I did the book 64 Brownstown 64, the players, almost to a man, told me that they needed the coaching change. That they thought Paul Brown become a little stale and kind of a little bitter. Blanton Collier took the best of Paul Brown with the freshness, and frankly, he was just a nicer guy to them at that point. You know how it is. You bring a nice guy after and a hard guy. Like right now, Kevin Stefanski comes and he's Mr. Calm and organization. After Freddie Kitchens, it's all up in the air and all that. So you change the complexion of the personality with coaching too. So
I don't know.
Blanton Collier is a great coach.
I don't know if you had this in your book but somewhere I had read. I read part of it, but I actually experienced part of it. My father was a friend of Maury Kono, who was the equipment manager of the Browns, and we used to get to go to practices when they practiced at League Park, where of course the Indians wound up playing. And there was a time near the end, probably in '61 or '62, when Jim Brown started to not want Paul Brown here anymore, that Paul Brown would take his car and drive it onto the outfield, what turned out to be the right field fence, and he would just watch the practice from the inside of his car.
Yeah, I had that in my book. Several players told me that, and like one time it was a real cold practice. The snow's coming down, and he sat in the car. And
the lights were on though to give him some light.
Yeah, but in other words, what I'm saying, they felt if you're going to make us practice in this blizzard, you should be out there with us.
Right, exactly.
So that's he kind of lost Boa. By the way, that said, Paul Brown should have a statue in Cleveland.
I wonder if his son would have allowed it at this point.
Well, he should.
He should, because historically, but so much hatred between the families. No question about that.
Yeah, but I mean, well, first of all, Waddell's gone, all that, and I would suggest to Jimmy he does that because, in fact, they also in that book I wrote the greatest Brown in team history was not Jim Brown, who's number 2, it was Paul Brown.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when Bill Belichick, he actually sent me a long email, Wes, where he said the best, most innovative pro football coach, period, Paul Brown.
Well, Paul Brown was good friends with Bill's father, so that's where that relationship started.
That's true, but he also got to know him. But nonetheless, I think he's right.
Yeah, it would be hard to argue that. We got to go. Great job, as always, by Terry Pluto, the 13-time Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Ohio. 14 is just ahead. Well, 13 is a bad number, so we'll skip that and we'll go to 14 and 15. Terry Pluto.
Well, whatever. I'm just glad I'm still working, Les.
Yeah, who isn't? Thanks to Terry Pluto of cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. We'll see you on Monday with Bud Shaw. Tuesday, it's Mary Kay Cabot. Wednesday, the D-Man Dennis Manteloff. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.